If this is your first time here, I'm Nidra the Seer, and this is the Arcturus Thread, where I basically share open thoughts, open knowledge, open enlightenment in a sense, which is basically all just what I consider to be the thread back to myself, the thread back to the divine cosmic blueprint that I carry, that you carry, that we carry, and what I consider to be my thread of existence that is an energetic construct and a cognitive construct that helps me do my part in this shift we all call enlightenment, spiritual awakening, and the thread back to the seat of our soul, right? Our cosmic divine essence. And so today I'm literally just kind of laying in bed and not even laying in my bed. I'm laying in my oldest daughter's bed. I have a 20-year-old and we are cat mothers, but she has been a horrible cat mother lately. And so I'm here trying to keep both of her cats company. And I literally have been debating when I wanted to start this podcast, how I wanted to do it. And usually I am a habitual planner, but after this most recent cosmic shift, that sort of essence of my persona, right? My ego has died. And so I've been doing things more so on a whim, but it's not on a whim. It's more so based on like the essence of the call. What am I being called to do? When is my soul calling me to do it? And it just so happens when I lay here, and you may even hear me yawn a little bit, but I want this to be as truthful as possible. And so right now I'm in a state of complete and utter fatigue due to these sort of cosmic shifts and due to the aspect of my awakening, as many of you are experiencing right now. And I've been going through all the things in terms of the shadow self rising and me looking at components of the persona and the ego and sort of allowing it to rise, but understanding it from a place of conscious awareness that I've never done in any sort of death and rebirth cycle that I've been in. And today while driving, I was channeling a lot of things, and a lot of times I get downloads in the most strangest places. I usually get them in the shower. I get them when I'm driving, and I get them when I'm sleeping or kind of in that in between state where I'm not quite asleep, I'm not quite awake, or I'll get it when I wake up. Those are like my hot spots for divine downloads. Those are also my hot spots for like deep, impenetrable thought. And if you are a spectrum person, you know hyperfixation is our niche market, but I believe that it is also a gift to us. A lot of times people can find me to be very anal in the way that I can focus my mind and focus my energy. But as a gifted being, I do believe that hyperfixation is indeed a gift. I have been successful at many things in my life, some of which I really wanted, some of which I did not. And the irony is the shift right now that I'm experiencing in this death and rebirth experience has allowed me to see what's what. What did I really manifest out of soul desire and what did I manifest out of ego desire? And it turns out there was more ego desire than soul desire due to indoctrination, environmental stimuli, things pushed on me by loved ones, friends, family, you know, arch nemesis that aren't really arch nemesis but want to be for different reasons, right? And I do believe we cultivate energetic distortion in our reality due to the energetic distortion that we hold. And this awakening has really allowed me to set in on the mere fact that anytime there is chaos and calamity in the outside world, it is merely showing up to enlighten you on the chaos and calamity that is on the inside of your world, right? And often we get caught up on the karmic components of existence, right? The people that show up in our incarnation offering us mirrors of deception, distortion, and evil, volatile energy, not realizing that the goal of the experience is not to focus on the person, place, or space that is offering me the distortion at my inception, but more so the focus should be the mirror, because there's always a dual nature to these soul contracts. And I talk a lot about that on TikTok. And for those of you who don't follow me on TikTok, I am Down the Rabbit Hole Seer, and my page is Down the Rabbit Hole 888. And I talk a lot about soul contracts and soul agreements, but I do believe that this entire existence is a soul contract that we agree to. And for those of us who are the first ones out of the gateway of enlightenment, or more so individuation, also known as spiritual awakening, right? I do believe that we took these contracts for the specific space and humanity to come and experience the shift, but be the shift in real time, and to also assist others with shifting. And I do believe that's why so many of us are being called to be teachers, speakers, healers, scribes in real time, because I do believe in a past incarnation we were all those things. And right now, the remembrance is rising so that that energy can return to us, because this entire journey was about returning to the original thread of the self, the original cosmic blueprint of divinity, right? We talk about wanting to know God, wanting to understand the depth or the never ending labyrinth of spirituality. But I don't think we understand that most times we are the depth. We are the thing we seek, the thing we speak, the thing we long for. This is a lot of times we're so detached from the soul and the original blueprint that we think the only way back to those things is to seek outside of ourselves. And I do believe that in the beginning of the journey, that is a plausible sort of rational deduction, right? For me to find the answers, I have to go seek them, right? And the seer is always the seeker, right? And so a lot of times when we are disconnected from our higher self, the God within, right? Our God body, our God consciousness, what some consider to be Christ consciousness, right? In order for that Christos energy to activate and allow us to align with the higher self, we have to remember. And so I do believe that all spiritual exploration starts out with us being the seeker, right? And you know the cliche term, seek and you shall find, right? It's like when you go looking for something, you're going to find it. I do believe that that is always the end result, but I do believe how we each get there is congruent to our own spiritual journeys and soul contracts. I believe that there are some of us that took the path of the karmic catalyst, and we have found that the way back to the self was through all these different trials and sort of catalytic events that we agreed to prior to incarnation that we sort of forgot, and we sort of remembered after like 50 million trials of just utter chaos and distraction, distortion, right? For example, when I look at myself, I look at all the aspects of this journey that I can literally envision in real time. Like I can literally utilize the byproduct of the photographic memory and just look at the entire script of who it is I thought I was, who it is I was told that I was, and who it is I later became, or more so understood myself to be. And I see so many aspects of the journey where I literally was seeking the unknown through outside sources, because we all know that's how this thing starts. You don't say, hey, I want the answers to me, and you go look within, although that would be the genius route. But because we have been a byproduct of the noise for so long, silence is never our go-to answer. That's why a lot of times silence for me felt like chaos. And I have a very strong mind, a very gifted mind, but my mind is wired to sound, right? And some could say that that is a byproduct of me being a starseed. Some could say that is a byproduct of the Arcturian origins that I hold. And some could also say that is a byproduct of me being a human being in the United States of America, right? Because we are all wired to follow the noise, right? The noise doesn't always have to be chaos, but it's always distraction, right? And we look at spiritual beings and how we all talk about breaking out of the matrix, right? And then We look at the blueprint of the Matrix, the movie, which I can't really give you in full because ironically enough, me personally, I've never seen the movie, which to most people seems crazy. And it's on my to-do list, I believe, but maybe it's not. I'm not sure yet. But I do believe that a lot of times we think of the Matrix as this outside entity because we have been programmed to think as such, right? We don't understand these systems, and our experience in these systems is a byproduct of our own inner solar system, right? And when I say these things, this is literally giving my thoughts out loud, giving my knowledge out loud, but more so giving my open perspective based on my journey, right? And I think about the ideology of collective consciousness, right? And I think about why things have been what they are, what they were, what we've been told they should be. But I also think about the biggest lie we've ever been told, and that is the lie of separation. And something that came to my mind this morning, I was driving home from picking my mother up, and I was listening to Bobby Hemmett, and then I kind of shifted and I was listening to this ancient Kemetic sort of it wasn't like a documentary, it was like a podcast that just kind of gives like ancient knowledge for those who are awakening and remembering their timelines in ancient Kemet, which I happen to be one of these beings, right? And I was listening and my brain started to shift in terms of something that I have deduced many times when I look at different beings who have risen into the seat of the soul and the seat of the truth. And I noticed that even within beings who have awakened, there are still lies of separation. And there's this sort of like common sort of separation that happens once the soul awakens because for each party, um, there's a different reason or a different noble sort of gesture that most may be unconscious of, and some may be very conscious of why even after spiritual awakening, we like to separate ourselves, right? And I'm going to give you a kind of idea of how this looks amongst spiritually awakened populations, right? And people think to rise into the truth of the soul and the divine spark, the divine essence that I am no longer in search of God because I understand that I am a fraction of the divine creator. I am God in human form, right? I am a goddess cosplaying as a human. And you can take that where you want to take it, but this is me giving my truth in real time and that just what I understand or perceive to be, right? And so when we come into these sort of divine epiphanies, because that's what they are, we're not on this journey to learn, we're always remembering. I believe that even when I'm called to learn something, there's this sort of spark that goes off to where I'll remember certain aspects, and then it gives me a divine download, a dream, an inner knowing. And that is what this journey has been for me, majority of the time, right? Or this just level of awareness of my ego and the persona that I embody and why my past was so catalytic in terms of karmic energy, right? I agreed to those contracts. I agreed to those experiences because of the generational inequities I was being called to lift as a generational curse breaker, as a chosen vessel, right? As a star seed in real time. But I look at how at every aspect of the journey, there was duality. I understand the micro and the macro of all things, but there was always this notion of separation, right? Because the seer who is rising into the truth of the self still holds aspect of the truth of human indoctrination, right? And even when we think we are removing ourselves from that very thing, there's an aspect of that that it holds a certain like imprint, a sort of essence of a soul imprint that I don't believe can be fully lifted sometimes if we are not aware of it. And I may be going off on a tangent, but I'm going to try to break down what I've noticed and how I noticed it rising in myself, right? Because we look at all the, for example, I'm a melanated woman, right? I look at the melanated figures that are historical to me in my lineage, but the melanated figures who have risen against these sort of patriarchal, matriarchal, whitewashed, hate indulged, controlled, overpopulated ignorance of a system that we live in, right? And we know there are so many different aspects of this journey that is catalytic for a melanated being, because we have to go back and look at the origins of separation in terms of slavery, in terms of indoctrination, in terms of turmoil that our ancestors faced. But something that I've noticed is that when we all rise, there is this sort of dire need to once again separate ourselves, even though for most of the journey we were trying to scream from the high heavens that there should be no separation, that I am as good as my white Caucasian counterpart, right? But yet I've recognized that when we rise, there is this unfueled rage that starts to purge, to where although we have been screaming about the separation and why we can't rise in the same ways as them, and why we are blocked and bound and programmed and taught to hate one another, taught to be crabs in a barrel, taught to be jealous, taught to be coons. And this is not true for everybody. This is just what the imprint of the system has done to us. We rise into our awareness, into our truth, and there are still these components of separation in some of us, where we make the journey still about separation instead of returning to the whole and recognizing that all these aspects in terms of the microcosm that we have experienced in our journey was very, very much so a dire sort of variable for why we were able to rise, right? So why utilize those components and then come out on the other side and make that the focus? I do believe that there are teachers that teach the truth and that say, hey, this is what's been done to us. This is what's still being done to us. And those are the teachers that I really respect and value. But I also think there are teachers that have this sort of, how do I put it? Unawareness that there is still separation in the spirituality that they come to offer. And there's still sort of boxes that people are placed into. There are still sort of categories of behavior that is hyperfixated on through the guise of rage and anger, right? And we have a lot of rage and anger because of what's been done to us. But I don't think some people realize that we are meant to alchemize it and transmute it. And even if you utilize those aspects of the energy in your teaching, it's meant to be through it's meant to be through alchemy, right? It's not to make this like a war of opposites, because when we continue to make it a war of opposites, we are just re-emulating aspects of the past that we want to overcome, that we came here to overcome. We came here to remember and rise and teach and heal. But how can I heal from my ancestry and the energy that is in that 12-strand DNA that I activate through these experiences if I still want to hold on to separation? And I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense. And again, these are my thoughts out loud, right? And my mind just kind of noticing certain things. And I think that the reason why this kind of still holds us back is because spiritual awakening is not linear, right? We know that time is not linear. That's one of the biggest lies ever told amongst the millions of lies we've been told, that we are awakening to the truth and remembering, right? Due to us sitting in the seat of the soul and the divine cosmic essence that we hold, and we have now activated the remembrance to remember these things are false, right? Thanks to the higher self, the God body, the inner God that is me, that is you, that is us, right? Once we have reawakened in the thread of cosmic existence within ourselves, we realize that separation is the very thing that keeps the truth from rising in the way we want it to, with a lasting imprint that is carried down from generation to generation. Because even when souls are activated, there is still this sort of separation that exists, not realizing that awakening is not only not linear, but it can't be boxed in, because one, awakening is a mass collective of people who are going through multiple awakenings. A spiritual awakening is a never-ending labyrinth of evolution and elevation of the soul, right? So to say that is to say this: as I rise, as you rise, as we rise, we have to remember that there are multiple awakenings going on within the awakening, right? We have the starseed awakening. That is the starseeds that are rising and remembering their ancient cosmic blueprints, their sort of solar lineage, where they originate from in terms of the Boötes, in terms of the star systems, right? The galaxies. They are remembering their galactic essence. They are remembering that they are the ETs walking this planet, bringing enlightenment and higher knowledge, right? Higher transactions amongst the cosmos. Then we have the divine feminine awakening, right? That is divine feminine essence that was suppressed since the beginning of time, since these systems took place, and they were not only misogynistic and patriarchal in all the ways, but they erased the essence of the divine mother, the divine feminine essence within, the power of the womb, the power of feminine creation. That is the byproduct and the centric focus of all things, because without woman, there will be no creation, because all creation started with the mother goddess, right? The mother Gaia, right? And so there's that, where these divine feminine energies are rising, and remember their power of the womb, their sacral energy, the essence that they hold as the mother to all things, right? The importance of the feminine energy, because nothing can be manifested or created without it. And that energy is in everything and all things, in man and women, right? We know that we are both masculine and feminine, right? And so we have that awakening going on. Then we have the Kemetic awakening going on, where the melanated beings are remembering the byproduct, or more so the divine essence of the melanin in their 12-strand DNA. They are remembering that they are the original beings. They are remembering that everything started with them, came from them, right? They are remembering that they are the seat of civilization, that they started civilization, and everything was a byproduct of what they originally cultivated, right? We know that people talk about ancient Egypt, which we know to be ancient Kemet, and that civilization was not only beautiful and prosperous, but it was the sort of mirror for many civilizations that came after, right? We know that people are remembering ancient Sumeria. We know that people are remembering Atlantis, right? Lemuria, right? We know that all these civilizations were the original civilizations that were the cosmic blueprints, and the more so earthly blueprints for how everything started. So to have all these different aspects of awakening happening in real time, and people are not only getting back to the superpower of the soul, but the superpower of memory of the ancestors, of the lineages that they incarnated in, the general inequities that are in the actual 12-strand DNA, but you are remembering that the junk DNA is actually the good stuff. So for it to be named junk is just another way of them trying to divert the truth, right? And you want to believe that it's junk, when in fact it is the loosh of life. It is the loosh of divinity. It is the loosh of your ancestry, because the ancestors don't just speak to you, right? They move through you. They move through your actual vessel. Every experience that I have is mine, but it is also ours in terms of my lineage, because I don't only carry the seed of my soul, I carry their energy as well. So I am experiencing life in motion in real time as a divine cosmic being, but when I move through this 3D realm, they are always moving with me, because they are in my actual vessel. They are in that Tesla coil that we like to call DNA. That strand of DNA, once activated, releases their soul memories, releases their pain, their trauma, everything that they've experienced. And through this soul agreement that I have as the generational curse breaker, as the star seed, the chosen seed, right? The one that has agreed to exist in this particular time in humanity, I have agreed to allow all of that energy, all of those emotions to purge through my vessel. So while I will not only remember it all, I will allow myself to feel it all because it's in my actual bone marrow, right? That's why a lot of times when we are releasing for the ancestors and we are healing generational inequities, it's not just spiritual. It's not just energetic. It's physical, literally. And so we are purging it at the energetic level, but also at the physical level because density is in the body. That's why a lot of times when we are walking this journey, we sometimes often unconsciously cultivate disease that is due to energetic dis-ease that was handed down to us from the ancestors, and it was also incorporated in the vessel through our worldly experiences. Every day you are picking up density that you are unconscious of. And that was also not a mere byproduct of happenstance. That was also literally more than just a coincidence. It was on time. It was divine alignment. It was divine assignment because the inner shaman is going to awaken in you and you are going to remember that we can heal the body ourselves. We have the pharmaceutical companies, right? We have corporate America. We have the healthcare system that you forgot is a sick care system. Healthcare in America does not exist, right? Because if we had healthcare in America, they would teach you, or more so help you to remember that our entire existence, we have been holistic healers. We heal through the foods we eat. We heal through the energy of the sun. We heal through the energy of the earth. We heal through sound, through vibration. That's why Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. All those things heal me on a regular basis. That's why when I feel sick and there's some dis-ease in my body, whether it's actual disease or just energetic disease in terms of energetic distortion, I know that my meridians are out of alignment, right? My chakra system needs to be healed. Maybe my bladder meridian is off. I know that the the basic sound in my temple, the frequency, the vibration is distorted. I know that my gut may be imbalanced. I know that I may have consumed parasites, and guess what? If you are living, breathing, and eating in America, parasites have hit your gut many times because it is in the things that we eat and it is put there deliberately, right? The way of these systems is they feed you the sickness and then they turn around and feed you the cure. But unfortunately for us, the cure is not curable. That's why anytime you hear any type of pharmacology based commercial where there's a medicine that they want to give you for your heart, at the end it'll say this disease, this medication may cause A, B, and C, and you hear this long, fast, drawn out description of what other ailments or energetic distortions will exist in the body once you take this medication, because medication is designed to throw off your frequency. Again, we don't live in a healthcare system. We live in a sick care system because that is the byproduct of capitalism. They feed you the ailment of energetic distortion through multiple ways, through mass media, through the foods you eat, through the things you consume on television, the radio, just the way of the world with all the trauma, drama, and chaos. These are all energetic distortions designed to harm your vessel at the energetic level to where you are no longer balanced in your vessel, right? And your body is your temple, right? It is the house of the soul, the house of God. And once it's distorted, they give you a cure that doesn't cure you. It just suppresses certain symptoms and helps to cultivate others. So this is why the holistic shaman, the holistic healer that is in you, that has been given to you by your ancestors, is suppressed. This is why they've tried to put a cap on awakening, because the you that remembers yourself and knows that I am, right, that you are, that we are, will rise, you will heal your own vessel, and you will have no more need for these systems. And all of these systems are based around capitalism, greed, and just the lower self, the lower nature, the lower chakra system, right? And they want you to be a part of that because then you walk through the world as sleeper cells and slaves to their system, and it fuels them and gives them more of what they already have, which is usually the almighty dollar. That's why a lot of people are programmed to believe that money is evil, that wealth is evil because of these systems of the world. But you're not here to break out of these systems. You're here to break out of your own internal system. Because once I break out of the matrix of my mind, then I can't be tricked by any system. And that's literally just where I was this morning when I was just looking at certain things in terms of separation. When we rise and we awaken, a lot of times we still want to place awakening in a box, and we still want to be in these sort of groups, right? The melanated beings want to be over here. The Arcturian starseeds want to be over here. If I'm a Pleiadian, I want to be over here. If I want to talk about this, then I want to be over here. If I'm a divine feminine and I've been harmed by men, then I want to be over here because I hate men and I hate this patriarchal system that they've cultivated, when really we are meant to come together and piece together all these pieces of humanity and of the things that are not serving humanity, because awakening is not about clicks. It's not about who knows what. It's about truth. It's about divine alignment. It's about awakening humanity to the truth that separation is the very thing that allows these systems to thrive. But that's the kind of thread of enlightenment that I was on this morning as I kind of dive down a deep rabbit hole of my own thoughts, which I tend to do on a daily basis, right? That is the niche market that I live in real time as a neurodivergent being. But I just started kind of seeing that when I was listening to certain things and kind of realizing that even after awakening, sometimes I think that we still kind of separate ourselves and separate what truths we want to focus on. And I don't believe truth is meant to be boxed in. I believe that truth should be highlighted, but I think we should highlight it from a place of like the imprints of these truths and what it has done to my people, your people, all people. Because I think when we only marginalize the truth, we get trapped in a way that I think is not congruent to the all. And we didn't just come here to shift one group, one frequency. We came to shift all of humanity because it is for the greater good of my soul, your ancestors, the lineage you are being called to liberate. But it is for the good of Mother Gaia. It is for the good of the animals, the trees, the air, the water, the all, right? And enlightenment is about all things and all people and all energy and all truths and all lies. And so that's just kind of what I thought this morning. And ironically enough, I'm stopping at 33 minutes and 8 seconds or maybe more. And 33 has been following me all week long. And that is the synchronicity. That just reminds me of many different things. And I won't get into that because right now I feel a gnat coming on. But if this is your first time here, I'm Nidra the Seer, and this is the Arcturus Thread, where I thread together all things that my mind has awakened to, has observed, has thought about, and that's kind of what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you for listening to my thoughts in real time. And until next time, continue to be the thread in real time, continue to be the vibration, and continue to be a tuning fork in motion. I'm Nidra the Seer, and this is the Arcturus Thread.